Welcome to Rogue Bogues. This is episode number 40 of the basketball series. Myself, Andrew Bogut, and Mike Procopio to spitball some basketball, what's going on in the world, the NBA, and everything few and far between. Pro, how's it going?
Bogues, can't complain, brother, and nobody would listen even if I had any complaints.
Oh, you never know. You can just frantically tweet. You'll get 1 or 2 likes these days.
That's a good point. I'm sure there's some fucking sad soul that would, or some fucking maniac that would want to listen, but
shoulder to cry on for sure. So anyway, the breaking news for me is I bought an aquarium, Pro.
Oh, fucking what?
I bought an aquarium, a small one, just a small little aquarium. So, so my kids have been breaking my nuts about getting a pet. We don't have a pet at the moment. My wife and I had 2 dogs for a number of years and we enjoyed the dogs thoroughly, and they passed away both recently, but we, obviously with 2 kids now and a pet and cleaning up the shit and they destroy everything. So we just haven't, got another pet. So they've been breaking our balls. So I thought, all right, cool. I actually went to an aquarium about a year ago and they started walking me through the maintenance and I basically walked out and was like, no, I'm good. I just couldn't get my head around like, it's basically the first month is a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
So anyway, my wife's been away for a week and I've just been myself and the kids, and the older one's like, I want a cat or a dog and this and that. I said, whoa, pump the brakes. We need to see if you'll even look after him, because we know how that all finishes. The parents end up doing all the brunt of the work. So anyway, long story short, bought an aquarium. So sitting right next to me here in the office next to my podcast equipment. That's about as much fun as I've had for the week, bro.
What are you, a fucking James Bond villain with that fucking aquarium? What do you got, sharks in there?
Oh, it's tiny, what kind man. It's like literally, it's literally 1.5 feet by 1.5 feet. It's like,
shit.
It's just a small one. I've got 6 little fish in there. One of them's not doing too well. I don't know what the hell his problem is. I chuck food in there and he does nothing, doesn't even go after it. I think he might be blind or something. But other 5 are doing great though. So yeah, that's the breaking news from my end, Pro. But other than that, we'll get into some basketball. I want to open with some credit, Pro. We get negative at times on the show. I think we've got a good mix of positive and negative, but I'm going to give the NBA a shitload of credit. I'm going to give the referees a shitload of credit. We've texted back and forth about this. I've been pretty vocal about it on Twitter as far as commenting on it. The referees have made a huge adjustment with offensive players seeking the contact to be fouled, and it's been blatant the other way. It's almost gone extreme the other way, and I'm going to say this right now. I'm all for the extreme going the other way because I think that's easier to reel back towards the middle. What I mean by extremes is they're letting some hard fouls go at times if players are trying to initiate the contact, right? That are probably fouls, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's for me, it has been great to watch. It was one pet peeve I've had in the NBA. It is the professional foul seekers and, James Harden types. I don't enjoy watching it. I turn off. It's not entertaining. It's theatrics. It's fooling the referees. And I don't blame James Harden, right? I don't blame those players that do that. They're playing to the rule of the law. And if they manipulate it every now and then to get free throws or whatever, that's a part of the game. That's a game within a game. So I'm not blaming the players. But credit to the fucking NBA. I love it. It just, the bullshit, the shenanigans, professional foul drawers, they need to be put to an end, and they have, Pro. I don't know how you've seen it, but we'll get through some numbers shortly, but I've loved to see it so far.
Yeah, I agree with it. It fucks up the whole flow of the game. When it's just every other possession, there's some bullshit foul being called. And to be honest, like when I was working in the NBA and trying to increase players' sort of offensive productivity and trying to get to the free throw line, I would try to study like Harden, Durant, and how they draw fouls. And it's like I said, I can't teach that. Some of the shit they would do it was unbelievable how they would get these calls. And I'm glad. It's just, like I said, like if you're trying to watch a game and every other possession's a fucking bullshit foul, especially on the 3-point shot when they're just professional foul seekers, like you said. And, I don't really like the one in transition where you just stop. I know it's a smart play, quote unquote, but I'm glad they're getting rid of some of this shit. It just takes away from the game.
Yeah, I've always had the mindset of the foul in the NBA. If you've got a contest hand up and you're in your stance, you have to have it vertical, right? So if you have the arm kind of out towards the player, I still think that if you're in that position before the offensive player where your hand is, I think that's your space. And I've always argued that like the offensive player is doing the rip through, or they clip your arm. they're initiating that. It's not like you're swiping down. And I've always been vocal about that. It just always bothered me. But it's been great to see. It just takes away from the shenanigans. Some players have struggled with it, with the adjustment, which we'll get into now. But two big examples that I saw over the last couple of days. Brooklyn Nets played the Miami Heat. James Harden, he had Bam on him, Bam Adebayo on a switch. He drove right. He went into his ISO, drove by him on the right. Bam kind of stayed with him, and Bam had an armbar on his hip as he was driving. And James Harden had the ball in his right hand, and his offhand, he grabbed Bam's armbar, ripped through, and threw some brick at the basket to try and draw that foul, which he got for the last, arguably, 5-8 years of his NBA career, and it was a no call, and he looked like an idiot. Harden looked like the stupidest shot in the world. He tried to bank, it looked like a bank shot from the top of the free throw line. They didn't call it. They grabbed the rebound, go to the other end, and Harden stopped trying to attempt it. And they're the ones, like coming off a pick and roll and stopping, or there's an arm bar and you search for that arm bar. It's not a foul, and I've loved seeing it. The second example I've seen, I'm not sure if you've seen it, but Patrick Beverley grabbed a defensive rebound and kind of dribbled towards the side of the elbow and then dribbled back towards the middle. And Thanasis Antetokounmpo, Giannis's brother, was sprinting back in defensive, sprinting back for defensive transition. And Beverly sees him sprinting and dribbles into his line where he's running and just stops with the ball and then falls over. The Chris Paul, the notorious, especially for a big guy, you can't, we're not adept to putting the handbrake on that quickly, pro. I'm sure you'd know. So he ran him over, falls down. The referee calls an offensive foul. And that one probably is still a foul on Thanasis technically by the book, but I think they've had, they've been worded up to not play into that theatrics and antics of trying to fool the referee, and they caught it the other way, and it was awesome. And Beverly even got up, put his thumb up, and said, "All right, we're going back to playing basketball and the rules of basketball. I'm going to stop with the theatrics." And it was great to see. I'm not sure if you saw that play either, bro.
I did. As long as they're consistent with the Bogues. Like, one thing I got frustrated with referees when they would come in, they would come in like before the first game, and they would usually talk to your team for like 20 minutes, play that little video about the new calls they were going to make, and they were always like, "Oh, we're going to, the travels, we're going to call the travel, we're going to be heavy on it." And yeah, they would call it all through preseason, maybe the first 8 or 10 games, and then they would just get back to the same old fucking bullshit. So I just hope, and this is a great deal early on as far as what they've been doing, not calling it. Hopefully they stay with it and consistent throughout the year, of really making this a point of emphasis, because I'm telling you, it's just the game. There's so many good things about the game, don't get me wrong, but like the style of play is bad enough with all the threes and the fucking bad shots and no defense. And now, with those fouls, at least if you take the fouls out of it and you let them play basketball a little bit, at least it gets them at least a little bit back to reality with how the game's being played. So yeah, I'm happy to see it as well.
Yeah, I think it's the purity question too, right? It's you're watching a game and you're trying to trick the referee into something that's not there. And I think this, and like I said, I don't blame the player. They're playing within the rules. It's up to the referee to stop it. It looks like the referees are trying to stop it. And you made an interesting point around, a lot of our listeners won't know what you're talking about with those referee visits. So what Pro is talking about is every pre-season training camp, the head of the referees and maybe one other referee come in. Sometimes it's solo, or sometimes it's it is what it is. They come and visit every team during training camp for about an hour. And it'll usually be either before training or after training. They give you about an hour of their time. They play this bullshit video with, these are our points of emphasis for this season. This is what we're not calling. This is what we are. There's something different every year. Like there was one year where it was demonstrative reactions to referees' calls. So it could be as much as clapping, technical foul. It was that whole 2-3 seasons where they just would teeing you up for anything, right? So the referees would go around and they would give the spiel. And I always laugh at it, Pro, because players and coaches then would have an open forum for questions, and players would be like, "Oh, well, if I'm doing this," and I just used to laugh and be like, the players would get so heated, and assistant coaches, "Well, this is bullshit. This player does this, and the opposing star on this team does this. Why can't our guys get that call? That shouldn't be called." And they're getting all fired up, and you're like, this dude has to deal with this for 30 teams. He's going to yes-sir you just to get the fuck out of that meeting and get back on his plane and go to the next team, and not much is going to change. They've made their decision on their rules. They play that damn video. Keep in mind that's what they're trying to change, and just get on with it. Those meetings, Pro, I don't know how you felt, but a lot of times, every team I've been on, it'd get heated. The superstar player on the team generally would fire up, and this is bullshit and blah, 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 blah. And like you said, game 10, no one remembers it again. And it's just back to square one.
Yeah, I agree. And to be honest, if they can do anything, Bogues, they should be very hard on players that give any shit to referees. Honestly, like, you're a professional. The problem is, like, when LeBron does it and all the high-end guys do it, then everybody thinks they should be doing it. And it's just like, you're a professional team. Yeah, I understand things get heated, but be a fucking professional. Like what we told guys in Dallas was like, look, you get fucked on a call, you're going to get fucked on a call. You're a rookie, right? So like the next stoppage of play, put your arm around the referee and say, look, I thought I got fouled there. Can you explain it? And just build up some rapport with the ref. 0% of the time when you bitch about a call, are they going to really what are they going to say? Oh yeah, Mr. Bogut, no doubt about it. We're going to, that's not a foul. Like, what are they going to do? Change their fucking mind? Besides the coaching challenge, they're not going to fucking change their mind. And then you look like an ass by doing it, and you do it over and over and over and over again. That's the one thing about Luka, at least this year, like watching a couple of his games, like he seems like he's a lot better, at least for the first 5 or 6 games of the year.
Well, he was on the threshold last year for suspension, wasn't he? For technicals?
Yeah, but like it's bad look when you do it like almost every game, 3, 4, 5, 6 times a game. I understand things get heated, but like, they're never gonna turn their call around. So like a lot of times I've heard from like, other people who do it. They said, yeah, you know what? If I do it enough, they're going to give me give me the next call. And I'll be like, yeah, but like, you know what? It's a shitty way to do it. Instead of just putting your arm around them, like I said, they're going to miss calls. They're fucking human beings. They're not going to be great at it, of course, but they're going to try. There's some bad referees, don't get me wrong, but like a lot of them are they're going to miss shit. It is what it is. But just fucking be a professional about it. And I think that this is a good step with this no call stuff, not calling the things. But I think they should really be very tight with technical fouls. You know why, Bogues? Like, you do it for the first 15, 20 games, then guys got to understand they're not gonna put up with that shit.
Well, what do you mean by tight? Do you mean, okay, so devil's advocate here, I was an emotional guy. I wasn't I wasn't an every game emotional guy because, like you said, I kind of try to spend my bullets when I had them.
Yeah.
But let's say there's a bad call and I the notorious run in the other direction, hands on my head, but no abuse. Is that okay? Because I think I don't think that's too bad as long as it doesn't disrupt play. I think any abuse, swearing, like, what the fuck, I think that's no problem, no technical foul. But it got to a point where they, 4 or 5 years ago, where if you just ran away or you just clapped like, oh, come on, man, tough call, like, but no swearing, they'll team that up as well. So I think that side of things, the good referees usually they know when they've made a bad call. They usually give you 5 odd seconds to vent without swearing and direct abuse. Like, come on, man, how did you miss that? You got to call that shit. And then that's it.
Right.
And they'll let that slide. And then if you continue, they tee you up. They're the referees I respect, right? The ones that are quick whistle, I struggle with them. And the ones that blow something like a guy running in the other direction in front of their bench with his hands on his head, like, you don't need to tee that up. You know what I mean? And worst case, if it's slowing the game up, just give the other team the ball to take out. And if he's not back on transition, so be it. So are you referring to any kind of emotion or just direct swearing and abuse?
Well, Bogues, they're going to have to come up with something. Of course, it can't just be anything, right? But like, it has to be some type of consistent value system of, okay, this is what we're going to put up with. It's going to be very little, but we will put up with this. Here are the examples, just like on those videos. And then they'll show you before the season. And then here's what we're definitely not putting up with. And just show them examples so everybody's on the same page with it. I think it has to get better, folks. It's getting to a point where it's bad. Like, at least from the last few years. I'm not sure about this year how bad it's been. It's been early, obviously, but they gotta, it's a professional game. You can't every fucking time. Jason Tatum's been big on it. Luka's been big on it in the past. Hopefully he'll continue this year dealing with it the way he's been dealing with it. But you can't just do it where you're just complaining about every call for, against, whatever on you.
What's the number, Pro? What's the number for suspension? Is it 15? 16?
I think it's 15. Don't quote me on it, but I think it's something like 15.
Well, I think that's too high right there. So I know that's included with, I think, flagrants, isn't it, though? So, but look, I mean, 15 is probably too much because that's essentially one in 5 games, 1 in 6. You can get a T. So maybe they go to 1 out of 10. Maybe you go to 10 And then you bring that down a little bit, and then guys will be a bit more cognizant of not getting them. But yeah, I mean, you don't want to see abuse and demonstrative actions towards an official, but there also needs to be that human element of, I guess, like I said, the good referees just had a really good tact for controlling it well, and they'd give you a little bit of a leeway to, let out what you needed to let out, understanding that they probably made a questionable call, and then they'd say, all right, that's enough. And then if you went beyond that, you got teed up. I was cool with those referees, but I don't think it's been that bad this season yet. The other thing is, Pro, with this is we all know how it's going to work. Even if there is a hard rule on no tolerance, that if it's, Kevin Durant in the fourth quarter with 5 fouls, he knows he can push the envelope basically past whatever it is, right? Close game. Do they then call a T then? There's all those conversations and nuances that come in. It's easy to blow a T in quarter 1, 2, and 3 to a superstar player that's not in foul trouble. But what happens when LeBron James is, drives, gets hit in the face, they miss the call, and he's abusing the ref? What does the referee do? Is he going to want to be on SportsCenter, and give him his second T to throw him out or whatever it is? You know what I'm saying? So that's the other interesting one, my bad. But yeah, NBA, my bad, don't, it doesn't count as a personal foul internationally. It does. But just to finish his caption off anyway, James Harden right now, he just got a massive spike because they played Indiana the other night and he shot 16 free throws. But before that, he was at 5.7. He's at 5.7 right now with that massive jump, 5.7 free throw attempts a night. His career high season was in Houston. Yeah, 11.8 in 1920. So it tells you the disparities. He's basically halved his free throw attempts just because of this rule. I think the lowest he's ever had was his first couple of seasons, which were below 5.7. So right there, it has affected guys like James Harden. The other one that has made comments, Trae Young, I think his game's probably similar, where he tries to draw a lot of fouls. He is a smaller, more frail guy, so he does get pushed a fair bit. But those two guys have voiced frustration. I decided to just have a look at who else's numbers were affected, and it brings me to your point about different topics that we've had in the past where, bigs now need to shoot threes. You always said that, good players will always find a way. They'll always find a way to adjust and better their game. And you look at Steph Curry right now, Kevin Durant, Jokic, Giannis, even Ja Morant. They all have no issue right now scoring the ball at all. And some would argue, there were people that argued when I put Curry in this bracket, well, you can't put him in that bracket because he's one of those foul drawers. I'm like, yeah, because he plays to whatever he can. But at the same time, he doesn't need that to be the staple of his game like I think a Harden does. He'll find other ways and proven by his numbers this season. They're not calling that same stuff. His numbers are pretty much on par with the rest of the season. So, I mean, the players that are greatly affected are a little bit vocal about it, and they're going to have to adjust. It'll be interesting to see. First off, James Harden probably needs to get in a bit better shape. He looks really heavy out there, and then Trae Young to see if he can adjust. I think they both can. I think it's going to take us some time, but I think it's a different ball game, Pro, when you're James Harden. You start a game 0 for 5 from the field, but then you manage to shoot 10 free throws and get yourself in a rhythm, and then all of a sudden, that's a much easier game, arguably. But if you're 0 for 5 and not getting those baby calls to get to the free throw line, it's a much harder second half, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's a lot easier to get back in a rhythm when you can get to the free throw line whenever you want. And if you get to the line 10 times a game, if you get in the line 4 or 5 times in a quarter or a half, it really, it could really turn you around and get your confidence going. And as you know, confidence is the most important thing a player could have. So yeah, I agree. I'm glad they did this. I like the players that can get to the free throw line by using fakes. I don't like when they initiate. The only times I like when they initiate is if they're driving to the lane, somebody's on their hip, and instead of giving up that real estate, they sort of initiate that contact. Not blatant, but just get that shoulder into them. And I like that type of foul, but I don't like the Harden type stuff where they're just going under you or they're hitting your arm bar or what have you. So
yeah, I don't mind the pump fake as well in the paint, and some guys trying to block your shot.
Yeah. And
you pump fake him, and that's a standard basketball play. But if they go straight up and you initiate, which I think they've done a good job with this season too, they've done a lot of 3-point shots that I've noticed is if you're jumping even a little bit forward but straight up, but the player initiates the contact that has the ball, then they're not calling those. So I think it's probably, there's some people that have noted it has gone the other way where they've let go a whole lot more than they should. But I like that extreme rather than the other. But I mean, as a fan right now, which I am, washed up NBA player, doesn't play anymore. As a fan, it's great to see for me. I really, really struggled with the professional foul drawing. I would turn those games off. Whichever teams had those players, I generally didn't want to watch just because I don't want to watch a dude shoot 22 free throws. It's just not a beautiful game to me. I'm more of that beautiful plays, back and forth action, big three at one end, big dunk, big stop, big block, big rebound, charge, the emotions of the game. I don't want to see, foul, 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 foul. But that's just me. So anyway, we'll close that off. You sent through something interesting from the Utah Jazz. It was on Bleacher Report, so we credit them with the article. And it's basically stating that Utah Jazz confront elephant in the room to keep stars long term. So basically, it's an article stating that in today's NBA front offices, draft a superstar like Donovan Mitchell, then spend the next 9 years recruiting that player to stick around with the team they're already with for that third contract. Favors are done. Players' friends and family can find themselves in formal roles within an organization. That ongoing recruitment entails for more than adding complementary players on the superstars timeline. Quote, the only chance you have to win a championship is to have one of those guys, said a veteran NBA coach. If you're a small market, you got to do everything in your power to keep them because you only get one every 40 years without sacrificing your organization's principles. Well, in my opinion, that's very hard to do if you're bending that far. Continues on, one source with knowledge of the situation. Mitchell had no involvement in the Dwayne Wade purchasing a stake in the team. In any case, it's a move many league observers have viewed as a direct attempt by Smith, their owner, to appease Mitchell, who first formed a strong connection with Wade through their representation at CAA Sports. It's a little bit of a new owner syndrome too, said one assistant manager. You come in and you're immediately told the star player you want them to like you. So, star-driven personnel moves happen across the league frequently. Thanasis, Giannis's brother, will likely play for the Bucks as long as Giannis does. Portland is rostering 6'4" wing Keldon Blevins, cousin of Trailblazers All-Star Dame Lillard, on a two-way contract for the second straight season. Charlotte Hornets and LiAngelo Ball, Summer League, training camp, and now even the franchise of G League outfit in Greensboro. Even in glitzier markets like Brooklyn, major decisions are rarely finalized without consulting a team's marquee player. If I had Kevin Durant, added the veteran coach, I'd do whatever the fuck he says. And that closes out that article, but it's basically saying that, I feel bad for these small markets, bro, because I've seen this story so many times before. And one of the quotes from that, a veteran NBA coach that said, you want to do whatever you can to appease them without sacrificing your organization's principles. Well, in my opinion, it's one or the other, right? You can't do both. The Brooklyn story that we broke a couple of months ago, where they're basically paying for side piece girlfriends and friends and family for hotel suites on the road, and it's open budget. I get it to an extent. It is illegal, but for a small market like the Utah Jazz, let's say they sign some players to comfort Donovan Mitchell and whatnot. If he then gets up and leaves, which we saw with Cleveland and LeBron, you're left holding a bag of bad contracts and bad decisions and bad hires and a former AAU coach, it's your development coach or shooting coach and XYZ. And we've seen this many times, pro. But give me your take around it. Do you think this is feasible for small markets to continue to have to do this kind of stuff to keep players?
There's nothing you can do, Bogues. But that's the problem. There's nothing. Look, and I understand why there's nothing you could do. You got to try to draft well. You got to try to sign free agents. You're going to have to try to develop your talent. It all comes hand in hand, and get a little lucky. There are teams like Milwaukee, like Oklahoma City. They were able to get to a high level. Oklahoma City almost won a championship, and then Milwaukee obviously won one. But you can't keep these guys, you can't keep these guys against their will. The Clippers hired Kawhi Leonard's college teammate as one of their assistant coaches. It happens. This is what it's been happening for years. Big market and small market. And I think that they're going to continue to have to push the envelope on things that they do to sort of cater to these players to keep them there. They've got total control. If they wake up one day and say, I want to get out, 90% chance they're going to get out, probably 95. Force their way with a trade, what have you, or just wait till free agency and they leave. I don't know what you can do to stop it. I don't know. To me, I would probably give the team that loses the team that signs them will probably, I would have to give up multiple first round picks. If you want to really try to keep these guys here. And if they do leave, you're going to have to reward these small time franchise, these small market teams with something. But you're going to have to keep doing it. And all teams do it. Big market teams, small market teams, owners do it. Front office people do it. It's, coaching staffs do it. They do anything in their power to appease these players. And what are you going to do? It's not like you could say, well, the small market team, you're a restricted free agent for the rest of their career and you got to stay in this one town if you don't want to be there. So I don't know what you do, Bogues, to really stop it. What do you have any?
Well, sort of a discussion around the Supermax bonus. If you stay with the team, if you want out once you've signed it, then you lose that Supermax bump up. Something similar with contracts. Like there has to be something that can protect small markets other than having to sign their whole family and friend list that they've had at their wedding. It's not good. I mean, look, you look at the Cavs and what they had to do to, appease LeBron. Now, obviously a different situation, but they were all in for a championship and LeBron was the GM and they re-signed this guy to a big deal, that guy to a big deal. Cleveland's still feeling the ramifications of that to an extent. I mean, they got some high draft picks in last year's draft, but they're fourth year on from LeBron now, and they're still not really, they're starting to get a bit more competitive with some young talent, but they're it's going to be a 5-6 year process once players do that. Where they dictate terms and then they end up leaving anyway. Cleveland was left stuck with a bag of bad contracts, Tristan Thompson, J.R. Smith, whoever. And that's what you got to deal with. And like you said, there's no real way to get around it at the moment, but there has to be some sort of rules to protect those small markets because at the end of the day, every player wants to play in LA. Every player wants to play in New York and the big lights, the big marketing, all that kind of stuff. It's just so hard on those small markets to have to hire and do all this schmoozing behind the scenes whilst valuing your team's principles and your organization's principles and ethics. Like they don't go hand in hand. Your star player gets to have his uncle on the training staff, and then your second star player, what do you think he's going to ask for? And then what do you think your rookie watching that when he becomes, in a position to get a long-term contract, what do you think he's going to ask for? That's if that's what you're normalizing, it's a very slippery slope. And the one guy we're going to see with this is now Zion Williamson, is a prime example of this. Like, they've appeased him. They've got family there. They hired a coach that he wanted, blah, 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 blah. I think he still leaves. And then they're left with, holy shit, not only that, recruiting pro. So, arguably you have a superstar player like Anthony Davis with New Orleans, even Zion with New Orleans, Ja Morant, these guys. You're going to build your roster around their talent and their elite skill, right? So you're not going to, Memphis, for instance, let's say Ja Morant decides in 5 years he's going to leave, but they don't know that right now. And they're like, look, we've got an opportunity to sign, hypothetical, right? Steph Curry, or we've got an opportunity to trade for someone like that. We're not going to do that because we've got Ja. We're going to build around him with a good shooter, good strong big man, a good four-man. And then he leaves and you're like, holy shit, now the roster doesn't really fit. It's a bit clunky. We're missing a guy that was 60, 70% usage, similar to if Luka left Dallas, right? A lot of those role players aren't as valuable. Their contracts aren't as valuable. So there's more ramifications than as simple as, he left, they'll recover, they'll get draft picks. It's like your whole roster is structured around that elite, top 25 player you have on your team. That is the unfortunate business side of basketball, but I just think the deck's heavily stacked in the favor of big market teams that can just swoop those guys up after they've been developed, like an Anthony Davis or whatnot. But on the flip side, if New Orleans didn't develop Anthony Davis and he didn't do as well as he's doing now and not an all-NBA guy, they're left holding the bag again. So he's not going to leave then. They're stuck with that bad contract or whatever. So I think it works both ways. It's just, I don't know what the fix is. I think just structuring something different with contracts so there's more incentive for them to stay. Money is really the only carrot the NBA teams have to dangle, right? There's not much else you can do unless you want to really basically hire the whole suburb the guy fucking came from, or the whole town, hire 1,000 people in the front office of all his friends and boys and high school friends. That's probably the only other alternative. But yeah, it's kind of a brain teaser.
Bogues, you got to give incentives to the small markets if they do lose them. Like in football, they franchise tag players. And if he leaves or, he leaves in free agency or whatnot, that team that signs him has to give the team that lost that player, significant, not significant, but pretty good assets. I think it's a certain amount of first round picks. I would do something like that if you could franchise tag a player, and that player either forces his way out of town. I would do it salary wise, harder base compensation where harder to trade those players, give compensation where if you say Zion Williamson leaves to go to LA, well, LA's got to give 4 straight picks, like a pick swap, and then a pick swap in the next 4 years. At least you got to give them something, extra cap room if you lose your franchise tag player. Like, you're never going to stop the teams from doing under the table deals with players to try to keep them there. Signing, Giannis's brother or Steph's brother-in-law. It's always going to happen. You want to always keep your players happy, especially your really good ones. I I don't think you'll ever stop that, but I think you can make it a little bit harder for those players to leave with salary stuff like we talked about, as well as give assets back to the team that loses the player, rather than just losing. Remember that year where, LeBron left, you had Bosch left, Toronto, you had LeBron leaving Cleveland. Those guys left with nothing. I think in some ways there might have been sign and trades done where those guys got a draft pick out of it, but it was almost nothing. I think you have to give incentives to those teams that lose players to at least put them on the position, put them on the track of rebuilding a little bit faster. But it's hard, man, especially a small market team. It's really hard.
Yeah, it is. And it's going to continue, like you said. There's no fix. No matter what the rule is implemented, it's going to be circumnavigated. But anyhow, watch that space. Where in the world is where is Rui Hachimura, pro? That is a question. He is, I don't know if you follow this much, but he, personal reasons, hasn't reported to training camp, hasn't been around the team since training camp. So what are we, 31st of October in Australia, 30th over there. Hasn't been around. There's some quotes from some sources, so I assume players or management. Quote, we haven't seen him at all. Maybe he does individual workouts at night. We have no idea what's going on. Another source, what's weird is Rui's name is kind of taboo around here. Nobody mentions him. Have you heard anything? I mean, other than there's some potential mental health issues, but it's just strange that there hasn't been a statement from the Wizards. No one's really, usually these things leak through a player, through somebody, and then it gets noted off record with what's going on. But don't forget, it was a flag bearer for his country at the Japan Olympics. A lot of pressure on him with the basketball team. Was there I'm not sure if they've been in I think probably the 70s was the last time they played a basketball tournament at the Olympics, Japan. So a lot of pressure on him. They didn't do as well as they would have liked, but they were in a pretty suicidal pool, to be honest. His numbers weren't horrible, weren't great, didn't shoot it that well, but put up some decent numbers. But what is going on, pro?
I have no idea. Bogues, it's a weird situation. I guess from what I've heard that he's in individual workouts but not practices. There were stories a few weeks ago saying he unfollowed everyone since he took a leave. I've heard nothing but good things about this guy. Work ethic, pro, good guy, all of that. And he had a pretty good rookie year. I think he got hurt. There was an injury that he had, but I mean, the kid, nothing. Model citizen, one of those guys you think is going to be around for 10 years, not a problem. I don't know, Bogues. I have no idea. I don't think he got COVID or anything.
No, it's they've said personal reasons since training camp. I guess they thought that he'd report after training camp. There's rumors that wild rumors about he struggled with the performance in the Olympics, all the pressure of being flag bearer. It's all kind of culminated into him just needing a break. Who knows? I mean, you wish him well if there's some mental demons there, but it's one of those ones that's just strange. So it makes me think that it must be something pretty bad from a mental health standpoint if they haven't put a comment out, right? Because I'm sure the team, at least the GM and president and owner, hey man, this is one of our faces of our team, one of our young guys we just drafted, high upside. We want to know what's going on, but hopefully he gets healthy. But yeah, it doesn't look good because they're actually playing good basketball too. They're playing
they're playing well.
Yeah, they're pretty competitive. I like the way they've started the season. Hopefully they can continue that. Beal is tough, but yeah, he'd be a huge piece for him that could obviously help him potentially get to a late playoff berth. But yeah, we wish him well anyway. Charlotte, you see the low ball they threw at Bridges, pro?
Yeah, they threw him a smaller deal. They throw him they tried to give him a low ball deal.
Yeah, they low ball dealed him for his extension, 4 years, $60 million. I think he laughed it out of the room. There were some comments where he said, he thinks he's closer towards the max. I think he's a really good player. I think, and this is notorious for Charlotte and MJ. They try to be clever at times and lowball and get a cheap deal, and it can backfire. It can be deemed like a disrespectful offer, even if it is coming from MJ himself. And it's in their right to do so. They obviously know they're going to have to pay LaMelo eventually, and there's a few other pieces there that you got to pay. But yeah, I mean, 4 years, 60. It'll be interesting to see what he gets if he goes into restricted free agency down the line, or if he has that that now, a little bit of spite in him that he's pissed off at Charlotte in the front office. But they're a good young fun team to watch as well. So I just wonder if this will backfire to a point where it's like, unless you give me the max, I'm walking.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to come to that, Bogues. I think most teams are going to try to sign their guys unless they were averaging 18, 20, 25 points a game. They're probably going to come at you with a small offer right off the bat to see if you just want to take it and then you just want to move forward with decent money. I mean, it's not like they offered a mid-level exception. I mean, 4 years, $60 million is a pretty good deal. Not great, obviously not what he's worth. He's averaging almost 26 points a game now. And, obviously he's one of the better young players in the first 6 games of the year for them. But I think it's going to be all forgotten. He's a restricted free agent. The NBA teams can do whatever they want as far as signing guys, trying to sign guys. And then at the end of the day, they're going to have the last right to refuse if he does get an offer sheet from another team. Yeah, he might get a little pissy about the offer at first. But again, this summer they can come back and say, hey, we'll give you 4 years, 100. If he keeps doing what he's doing, he's probably going to get, I would say he's probably going to get probably in that 100 to 110 range, maybe even more, who knows. But, I don't think it's a big deal. It's not like I said, it's not like there was a lower offer, but it wasn't terrible. It was just, especially what he's doing now. Look, he only averaged like 12, almost like, I think he averaged like 13 a game his last 2 years. So it wasn't like he was putting up these monster numbers. And now he's putting up monster numbers. And if he keeps doing it and he keeps earning his wealth, he's going to get it. So, he'll be fine. I think both sides will be fine on this.
Yeah, you hope it will. I don't think it'll be too much of a big deal, but he's backing himself, and you like to see that. Just pray there's no injuries and can move forward. Mo Bamba, pro, what's going on, man?
Fuck.
What is going on?
I'll tell you what's going on. A complete bitch slap of me. He fucking, I destroyed him last year, and the guy's playing well. Hey, look, the team's not winning. That's not a backhanded compliment on that end. He's doing really well. He's putting up good numbers. Those guys are competing, and they stayed close in a couple of games already, even though they're not going to be very good this year. But, the guy's getting it. Sometimes it takes a while to get it. He's turned things around. He's had a pretty productive, probably last, I'd say, 8 months or so. So, hey, fuck, I'll admit when I'm wrong all fucking day. This guy's been playing well. What do you think about? Have you watched him?
Yes, yeah. Well, just under 14 points a game, 10 rebounds a game, 1.8 blocks, 50% from the field, 40% from three on 4.5 attempts, pro. So he's shooting the piss out of the ball from three. He's getting there. Look, he didn't play a lick his first couple of seasons. He wasn't even in rotations for a lot of his career early on. I mean, I think it's a mix. I think he's playing very well. I think also the fact that he probably knows he has to play right now with the roster that they've got. They're a tank mode roster, a rebuild roster with a lot of young talent. So he's going to be able to play through his mistakes. And sometimes that's all guys need. They need that opportunity to not go in there with a panic that, shit, if I turn it over or make a bad play, I'm coming straight out. He knows he's going to play, and he's on a team that sucks. So you can't take too much into the numbers, but he's still doing it. I mean, 14 and 10 is nothing to sneeze at in the NBA. I can tell you that much. A double-double. So I've enjoyed his growth, and I've enjoyed him sticking it up you, bro.
Yeah, you know what? He was a little immature when he came in the league, from what I was told. Work ethic, sort of like what he thought his role should be, very outspoken. And sometimes what happens with that, I think, with Clifford being a veteran coach, before he got let go, like, he wasn't going to put up with that shit. And he was going to, I think it really did him well with his career, and said, you know what, maybe I got to take a more humble approach at this. Maybe I got to work a little harder. Maybe I got to say a little less and start producing. And to his credit, he kept it going. A lot of players end up being like, because his talent level, he's good. Like, he could be like a different type. But you remember Jason Thompson that played for Sacramento? Like, Jason Thompson was a good, solid player. And he might be able to be better than Jason Thompson. But, like, Jason Thompson wasn't an all-star. He wasn't a great player. And I don't think Mo Bamba is an all-star or a great player. But he could be a solid player. And I think that sometimes when you get in there and you're just a solid player, but you have this attitude like you're a franchise guy, and you don't work hard, you're a pain in the ass, and then like things don't go well for you, Now it's like your year 3, your year 4. Look at the Bagley thing. Like, you could end up like that, where you're like, ostracized from your team and fucking sent to a different planet and not playing and this and that. At least now he's turned it around. He said, you know what? I got to probably change what I'm doing. I got to change my approach of how I approach the game, how I approach my, how I prepare for things. And hey, fuck, he's paying off. I got fucking bitch slapped, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, he was pick 6, so he probably came in with an inflated view of himself being a lottery pick that probably franchise guy in a year or two. So you can understand that. You just hope that, like you said, he's been hit on the head by Clifford and a few other people in the past, that he's realised he's still got to work for it. And it seems like he has. They're good numbers. So hopefully his trajectory continues to grow up. College college and kind of pros, actually, this affects. The NAACP is telling athletes at all levels not to sign with Texas teams because of their mask mandates, voting rules, and above all, abortion pro. Derek Johnson, president and CEO of the NAACP, signed a letter outlining Texas's legislation on abortion, face masks, and voting rights. The National Association of the Advancement of Colored People sent a 2-page letter to the players' associations of 5 professional sports leagues, calling on players to rethink signing contracts with teams in Texas due to recent laws passed in the state. Quote, Texas is setting a precedent for effectively dismantling civil rights throughout the nation. The letter read, if you're considering signing in Texas, I ask you to ensure that owners are upholding the responsibility of protecting you, the athlete, and your family. I ask you use your influence to help protect the constitutional rights of each individual at risk. Pretty strange thing for them to get involved in, number one. In my opinion, it's not sure around the quote around civil rights, because there are a lot of people that argue civil rights are impacted by vaccine mandates and all that kind of stuff. So just an interesting one that, I highly doubt there's any athlete in the world that would get an offer from a Texas team for $50 million and then get an offer from an LA team for 40 and be like, oh, I'm going to take the 40 because those abortion laws are a bit too much, bro. But I don't know what your thoughts are. Just a strange one that you sent over for us to talk about.
I think it's weird. It's a real weird. It's strange to get involved with it. Like, again, if you don't, it just goes to show you it happens everywhere. If you don't like somebody's politics, you attack them. If they don't think the way you should think, then you want to hurt that person or that entity. And I think they have no reason to sort of stop this. I'm not going to get into the rules and what I think of them and the voting laws and all that stuff, but it's just stupid. It's not smart. It's not smart. Like, you're going to tell people not to sign. You're going to tell college kids not to sign letters of intent with college teams because of a state's mandate, which the college has nothing to do with it. The college has nothing to do with the laws that were done in the state. So why are you going to...
All the pro sport teams, all the owners,
Yeah, I mean, look, you're NAACP. You're sticking up for African Americans' rights and minority rights and things like that. But you're hurting other people. Like, you're hurting other people in the process of doing this.
You're telling me there's no people of color that... I hate that term, by the way, but... There's no African Americans that, agree with the legislation in Texas. Is that what you're saying? Like that's why it's so stupid, because there's people that are going to be on both sides of it. Like, politics aside, there's going to be people that agree with mask mandates that are white, people that disagree with mask mandates that are white, and vice versa with any other race, religion, creed. This is one of the most split issues in world history, where it's not affecting color, religion, race, creed. Everyone's got a different opinion on it, and that's why it's so strange for an organization that
it's an abuse of power. It's an abuse of power. You got people behind you that are going to do whatever you need them to do. NAACP, just like any other big organization. And now, just because somebody doesn't think the way you want to hurt someone else by using your power to do so. It's just, it's a bullyish move. They stick up for people, that are getting bullied. And now they're doing the bullying. They're trying to do the bullying. It makes no sense. And I gotta pass on this one.
Yeah, Rabbit's got the gun. All I can think about is if, when I was 18, 19 or 17, 18, about to sign a letter of intent to go to, University of Utah, and I followed politics like I followed, the Bold and the Beautiful. I didn't give a shit, right? Like, and I think most people are the same. When you're young, you don't give a shit, you don't care about that. You don't want to watch what your parents are watching on TV or follow whatever they're talking about. That's just the way it was, right? And I wish I still liked that for that matter. But if I was going to college and I signed a letter of intent or was about to, and some group, I don't care who it was, the NAACP, it could be whoever it was, if they had nothing to do with my basketball, unless it was the NBA, the NBL, FIBA, if it wasn't one of those three, what I was trying to get to, I would look at that letter and then I would never look at it again. I would be like, I don't care. I don't care about it. Whatever the hell you're talking about, I don't care. This school is probably the best path forward for me to become what I want to be. I don't give a shit about all the other stuff on the side. Like, you deal with that. That's your problem. And I think most kids would be in the same basket. They probably arguably are following politics more than we did. I don't know how you did as a kid, but just because it's everywhere now, social media, Trump, Biden, all that bullshit. But man, like I said, if I was a kid getting an offer, I'm not even sneezing at that letter. I'd, use it to light a little bonfire in the backyard, and that's as far as it goes.
Let me ask you something then. Is the NAACP are they gonna refund the hundreds of thousands of dollars these kids are gonna lose in booster money by going to these schools in Texas? That's what I want to know, Bogues.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. That's what I mean. It's best for the kid. You can't take that away because there's some political laws you don't agree with. When you're supposed to be an association that is for all the people in your association, I'll bet my house there's people that are supporters of the NAACP that are probably against some of the stuff that they're saying is bad, So politics, sport, never mix as well. Another prime example that we had to note. Last one, Bobo, your boy, liked a tweet saying that he should be traded. So this has been a funny past 5 or 6 years where there's been some, there's subtle ways of doing things. I wonder if he gets a fine for it. There is legislation in the NBA rule book with social media and asking for a trade. They've actually put that specific rule in, Pro. I'm not sure if you're aware, but it actually has, if you like a post or tweet or Instagram post that is, something like that, asking for a trade, something that's frowned upon, something that's, derogatory, whatever, that they come after you. They put that in for that very reason, but he didn't do anything else but like it and then unlike it. But it seems like Bobo's a little frustrated there. He's in his third year? Hasn't played a lot. He's stuck behind some talented players, and yeah, I'm just waiting to see for the formal request for him to move on.
Bogues, every time I speak out about a player and I say he can't play, the fucking guy averages like Wilt Chamberlain numbers. So I don't know if I'm going to go hard in the bowl. Maybe I should for his contract stake. But yeah, I mean, it's a frustrating thing to be a pro. Like when you're a Luka Doncic or you're LeBron James or whatever, you got to play right away. Everything's gravy. You can either earn it. You're either going to earn the fact that you can play or earn the fact that you can't play. He probably feels as though he hasn't gotten a chance yet. He's a draft pick. He was very highly heralded getting into college at Oregon. And then, things really haven't gotten his way. It's a free enterprise system in the NBA a lot of times. They're going to find a way to play you if you could actually play. I've been hearing about this kid can play for 3 years. In Summer League, they think he's going to be the next fucking Oscar Robertson or whatever, Kevin Garnett or whoever you want to compare him to. And he just doesn't play. But he's got to be patient. Like, let that stuff work itself out. You pay your agent money to make sure that you get in the best possible situation. You have an agent, force a trade. He's not playing that much. Mike Malone, if he could help him in any way, he would. He can't get on the floor. Something about him is like doesn't really translate in the NBA at this point. And if he could, I'm sure Mike Malone would play him. So instead of like being passive aggressive and liking a tweet, look, young people always do stupid things. I mean, we all do stupid things when you're young like that. I get it. You're frustrated. You're not a 10-year pro and can't really handle not playing, but there's probably better ways to handle it with this, but I don't know. I don't think anybody really gives a fuck because the guy's been out of sight, out of mind for 3 years. You know what I'm saying?
Ouch.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I just don't think my guess would be he's somewhat struggling to fit in with what they're trying to do offensively, defensively, a little bit of step behind maybe. That'd be my guess because he's athletic, he's long, he can play an open floor, but I think that might be a part of what's going on because there's no way in the world you would not play a guy with that size and length, especially with the style that Denver tries to play for the most part. I mean, they got Jokic who's a bit slower, but they got usually athletes out there going up and down with Jokic just, putting it on the dime for whoever's running the floor and whatnot. So I can't see that Michael Malone's sitting there saying, how can I screw Bobo today? I really think it's just a circumstantial issue that he doesn't fit in with what they're trying to do. Final one, our guy, David Anderson of Robo's fame. We had him on a couple of months back, so check that out. Had some great stories, but he's officially retired, Pro. I think he's 42 this year, I believe. But he's finally hanging him up, which is great. He's going to go back and I would not be surprised if this dude makes a comeback somehow. Loves the game, loves being around locker rooms, and just a good solid guy to have around. And really, I think he's going to really miss it. So we wish him all the best. But one of the winningest Australian players, has tracked all around the world, played all around the world, different experiences. Great guy to talk to. Good friend of mine. We spent some time together the last couple of months working out together and whatnot. So we wish David Anderson all the best and all the best in his in the next phase of his life, bro.
Maybe him and Gaze could start a podcast and he could rival us.
Yeah, we can't even get a post from Gaze anymore after you berated him.
I apologize. I heard after I talked to him, he dyed his hair black. It's the first time he had black hair since the 70s.
Yeah, the midlife. Yeah, he was like, who are these guys? But nah. All good, David Anderson. All the best. Next, stats, useful and useless. So we touched on this one a little bit earlier. James Harden, this was before the Indiana game, 15 free throws total this season, or his fewest through the first five games of a season since 2010-11. Similar to what we spoke about, but just shows that, after 5 games, hasn't really got to the line as much as he would like. Three a game, useful or useless?
I'm going to say useful for the moment, for sure, just because it goes to show you how this new rule impacted him. And I think he's going to figure out how, he is one of the smartest scorers I've ever seen, and I think he's going to figure out. But I think it's useful for now, but I think that number is going to drastically go up by All-Star break. But for right now, I think that
you mean it's going to go up because the referees are going to go back to their old way, or he's just going to be kind of trending towards better shape and playing?
He's going to figure out some other fucking, half-ass way to draw fouls. I mean, the fucking guy's amazing. Like, some of the I hate watching him play. I love watching him play in Oklahoma City. I don't like watching him play now because it's just the ball stops. And he's a hell of a talented player. But the guy does, he's a genius when it comes to fucking, figuring out the rules of the game and how to sort of help himself in the process, his numbers. So I think he'll figure out some other fucking scam. He's literally, he's the Enron in the, what's his name? What was that guy that did that pyramid scheme? The Bernie Madoff. Yeah, he's a Bernie Madoff. Right, yeah. He's a Bernie Madoff of fucking drawn fouls. So he will scam the referees in some other Ponzi scheme. He'll go back to the lab and fucking figure something out.
He's the Tony Allen of health funds. Yeah.
Yeah, Tony Allen of Health Fund. Yeah. What do you think, Bogues?
I think it's useful. Yeah, it's useful because it's showing us that, their point of emphasis DVD shit they show you before the season, they're actually implementing. So like we've both said, it's 5-6 games in, small sample size. Let's talk about this again. I think we circle back in, around Christmas and see if it's trending that way. But I think another part, I've seen James Harden's comments. He said, he's claiming that he hasn't played live basketball all off season because he had some issues with his injuries and rehab, and he's clearly not in shape. He looks a little overweight. So I think that's a big part of it as well. So I think by, the next 4 or 5 weeks, you start getting into better shape. Those numbers will go up, but I don't think we see the 11 attempts a game that we saw in Houston ever again, thankfully, and I'm a fan of it. Next one, the Heat have a 9. That was actually via SportsCenter, one of the few good ones they put out, bro. So I just want to give them a shout out.
Oh, wow.
Usually It's just Stephen A. Smith yelling into a microphone.
Hey, Bogues, you feeling okay? You're shouting out you're giving props to the NBA and SportsCenter. You good?
Well, no, I had surgery, 11 days ago now, so it's probably the meds.
Stop sniffing that Oxycontin, by the way, brother. I don't think I think you should go to Advil.
We shelve them in Australia.
Oh, my bad.
You probably don't know what that means, but our listeners will know.
No.
The Heat have a 94.0 defensive rating this season. That would be the best defense by any team since the three-point era, 1980. That's via StatMuse. Useful or useless?
I think it's useless for now. I think it's unlike the James Harden deal. I think it's way too small of a sample size. Yeah, but I mean they are fucking playing great. They are playing really good basketball.
What's crazy is, Jimmy's a great defender and Bam, but they don't really. It's not like they have other standout defenders on that roster, really. Like Duncan Robinson's not known as a defender. Tyler Hero's playing a lot of minutes, not known as a defender. So that's the only reason that caught my eye was because of that. You're not looking at a long, lengthy, in-your-face defensive team, bro. And that's still pretty impressive over 5 games for a team that's not that.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so that's why I put it in. But go ahead.
No, I agree. I think it's useless. It's just too small of a sample size. I think they do a great job teaching over there. We talked about them 1,000 times here, and we're not going to be 1,001. But yeah, I just think it's too small of a sample size.
Okay, yeah, I agree. I think if it's the same number in another month, then it's really, really useful. But I think they'll be up there. They'll be a top 5 defensive team if they continue on that track. Now, Guy Harrison Barnes, man, he's having a barn burner of a start to the season. And once again, all these stats are going to be, the caveat's going to be sample size and 6 games in. But shit, he is 26.8 points a game, 10 rebounds a game, 51.4% from the field, 51.5 from 3 pro on 8.3 attempts. He's having a hell of a season. Just hit a big game winner in Phoenix too. So I'm loving seeing the Black Falcon, Harry Barnes, having these kind of seasons. I think it's just a testament to the way he works and how hard he works behind the scenes. Utmost professional, always kind of the same guy every day, puts his work in. But useful or useless stat, bro?
Well, I'm gonna have to go consistent and say it's useless for now, because of the fact it's such a small sample size. I will tell you this. The most dangerous thing a player could have is not only results, but have confidence. It's a scary thing, because if he can keep this up, because here's the thing, his preparation, as you said, always stays the same. His approach to the game always stays the same, and he's producing. Like fucking De'Aaron Fox is shooting like 13% from 3 or some bullshit like that. Like if this guy continues doing it and he just keeps his confidence going and like that, his confidence has always been high, but it's not. But like if he has this production, they keep going to him and he keeps figuring out ways to be productive like this. I mean, he's an efficient player. He's been pretty efficient his whole career. But I have to say useless because it's only been 5 games. But I will tell you this. It wouldn't be surprised, like maybe not 25 a game, but maybe 23 or 22 a game for the whole year. I think you could definitely see a big uptick. And I will tell you this, the guy's on my fantasy fucking team, so he better keep this fucking 25 game pace, or I'll put him on the fucking trading block. How about that?
Why not? But no, I mean, I think I'm going to go half on this one. I think it's early. I think you're right. But what's useful is 51% from 3 on 8 attempts. That's any team will take that right now. If he continues even these numbers, even let's say 80% of what he's doing, he's going to be an all-star, because I think they're going to be 500 at least. I think they'll be in the playoff mix if he continues to play like this, and he might go to his first all-star game. So hopefully that happens. It is early right now. We're throwing darts at a dartboard without having any drinks under us, so it's very, very easy at the moment. But we'll see how that goes. This one, the last one I added, I just saw this before we jumped on air. Don't look at it. Don't scroll down and look at the numbers, pro. But if I asked you who has the most paint points in the league up to date, who would you think it is?
A player that with the most paint points.
Pretty simple one would be the number one generally on most people's minds every season.
I'm pretty fucking stupid. I'm gonna go like
former MVP. Just won a championship. Giannis. I mean, Giannis would be, in my opinion, when you really think it through, Giannis is probably the guy you'd always think. But Ja Morant and Anthony Davis are at 16 points a game in the paint now. Morant, he's just playing unbelievably, as we know. I've really enjoyed watching his growth, but 16 a game from the guard spot, that's fucking hard to do. This season is very reminiscent of the D Rose year he won MVP, in my opinion. So far, small sample size, right? But very similar. The similarities, getting in the paint, bouncy, up and unders, really beautiful, elegant way to play basketball. Very, very enjoyable, worth the price of admission. So we got number 1 is those two tied. Giannis is number 2. Jokic is number 3. Number 4, Montrezl Harrell, pro. I called it. This guy was going to bring him energy off the bench. He's actually starting for him now, and they're winning games. So I might have got one right, but I don't think I had the Wiz. I don't even know if I had them in my I didn't have him in my playoff bracket, so I could be half wrong. But yeah, man, that's impressive for Ja Morant. I don't think it sustains for the whole season. I think the teams would surely see that, considering he's coming in from the 3-point line, and try to keep him out of there a little bit more and maybe go a bit more boxes and elbows. But yeah, an interesting stat nonetheless. Useful or useless? I
think it's useful. I think, like you said, the number will probably be a little different at the end of the year, but very reminiscent of a Derrick Rose, reminiscent of a Westbrook, how he attacks you, how he just plays with multiple speeds. He gets to the paint and he attacks and attacks. He's got a good floater. He could finish at the rim, as a lot of players have seen the hard way. I think this kid's a special player, and I think he's going to be, one of the top 10 players in the NBA pretty soon. Probably not there right as of yet, but he's fucking shooting up with a fucking rocket right now. He's pretty good.
He is really fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure.
And the three ball, he shot it. He's streaky though, kind of D Rose-ish. He's streaky, but yeah, he hit a couple of big threes against Golden State, and he's been real fun to watch, bro. So, on to your segment. What do you got?
Bogues, we got fact or fake news. Let's go. Let me just make sure I don't mess this one up. Oh, you know what? We talked about Ja Morant. Let's start with Ja Morant. Ja Morant will be on one of the NBA All-NBA teams at the end of the season. Fact or fake news?
Yeah, fact. That's 15 spots, I believe. I'm good at math, pro. It's 3 teams of 5. First team, second team, third team. I made one of those, man. I should know. I made one. That's one good thing individually I did in the NBA. But I think he's in. Yeah, I think he's in. I think he's a top 15 player. Like you just said, he's scratching the surface of 10, not there yet. But he's going to be. The balls continue to go through his hands 90% of the time when he's on the floor. They're a young, fun team to watch. Have a pretty good mix. They're still missing Brooks, I think. He's got to come back from injury, or he missed the last couple of games. So they'll be in there in that playoff fringe, probably, where do we have him? 6, 7 to 10, somewhere around there. So yeah, fact, he's going to be an All-NBA this season. What do you got?
I think so too, Bogues. I'm going to go with you. I'm going to go fact. I think that, he's coming on strong right now. I think that the team, his team's solid. I think that he's gone through the rookie. He's gone through that whole rookie deal, that whole young player deal as far as struggles and, trying to overcome some things. And I think that this year's his year. I think he's got ultimate confidence. I think the guy plays hard as it is. And I think the guy is a special player. So I think he'll make that third team, at least that third team All-NBA. Sticking with the genre of unsafe NBA cities to go out at night, Zion Williamson. He will play more than 55 games this season out of the 82 that he has scheduled to play. Fact or fake news?
Well, I would have said fact, but I don't know if you're on your phone, pro. But we're in a chat with the old Ethan Sherwood Strauss. Have you seen that text yet?
I've seen Zion. There's a picture of Zion, but I haven't seen it.
Oh yeah, if you click the link, yes. Anyway, he sent through a link of someone's recorded Zion working out. It's there's a tweet.
You sure that's not my pregame workout?
Well, yeah, I had to take a second look. Daman Rangula on Twitter has posted it, and the caption is "My first time back in the gym after a vacation," and Zion looks huge. So I'm going to say fake news. He's going to be under. Sorry, did you say he's going to play more or less than 55?
55 or more games.
Fake news. He's not. He's already missed 6 or 7. I think looking at how heavy he is, which we confirmed, no one else confirmed that for a long, long time until after we posted it. He's heavily overweight. It starts with a 3 somewhere, and that's all we know. Wouldn't get on a scale or trading camp, but he comes back from his injury over 300. There's a high chance he gets hurt again. I mean, he, like we've said, he's a strong dude, he's powerful, but he's athletic, and the bursts that he has with the power that he has whilst carrying an injury, it's a bad mix in my opinion. So yeah, I think he's going to be in and out of lineups, and they'll probably try to, even when he comes back, knowing he's looking at his weight right now, they're going to probably give him, he's going to play one of 2 for a while and not play back-to-backs. So you factor that in with potentially missing more time towards the mid or end of season. He's not hitting past 55, pro. What do you think?
I think fake news. I mean, we're at what, game 6 or 7 for him? And he's not even close to being in game shape. So now you're factoring in. I mean, I'm bad at this. Fuck, I thought Cunningham was going to be out the whole year. I read that tweet last week. The fucking guy played tonight with supposedly a broken ankle like a week ago. And now the guy's playing. I'm awful at predicting this bullshit. But like, I can't see him. I mean, literally, the guy's 10 games away. He's got to be 10 games away from like playing. He's not going to play. He can't be playing in back-to-backs being in that shape. I can't see him doing it, Bogues. I can't. I think you're going to see a 45 to 50 gamer from this kid this year.
Yeah,
55 is a lot. I say fake news. All right, last but certainly not least, Bogues. What I've been noticing over the past week or 10 days of the season, that there's a lot of players struggling shooting the ball. Dame Lillard's way in the shitter with his 3-point shooting. Kevin Huerter, who's on my fucking fantasy team, can't make a basket. Duncan Robinson, on my fantasy team, it's like shooting with 3 rims. He might be in concussion protocol and he may not even know it. Jason Tatum has been not shooting the ball well. All terrible shooting numbers this season. Now, there has been a change with the ball from Spalding to Wilson. Is the ball has anything to do with the lack of shooting? I mean, these guys are really good NBA 3-point shooters. And these guys are shooting very low numbers with their numbers. Does the ball have anything to do with that, Bogues? Because you've been through that ball change before, correct?
Yeah.
When Spalding...
I think so. I think there's some fact to it. Look, at the end of the day, if people are going to say the ball's round, it's the same for everyone. But, I've seen guys affected. So I went through that infamous year. What year was that? Was that 07, 08, 08, 09? It was somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Where they went from the synthetic leather to like a full synthetic rubber. And it was like complete opposite. And it didn't, the seams didn't line up all the way around. I didn't mind that ball, to be honest, because it was more like an international ball. I struggled with the NBA balls, to be honest, early on in my career, because every city you went to, they were different, and the leather, it wore differently. I remember going to New Jersey Meadowlands where it was really cold, and the ball would be like a dark brown in New Jersey. You go to Miami, it'd be a bright orange. So like every city was different, and the wear from the natural leather was different. So I didn't mind the rubber ones, but I think there's some fact to it, Pro. I don't think it's the be all and end all, but I think there's an adjustment period. What I would try to do in off seasons, I'd always try to get the ball that whatever next tournament, whether it was FIBA, Olympics, or NBA I was going to, I'd try to work out with that ball as much as I could. But when you get used to a certain ball and the way it feels and all that, yeah, it can mess with you a little bit. And then even if it isn't the ball and then you start shooting bad, you might think it's the ball. So then you got that whole mental thing. So I think there's some fact to it, Pro. Like we've said many times and you've said, players will eventually adapt. It might be a matter of them just getting more shots up with it and getting a better feel for it. I'll be interested to see. Have you touched one of those balls, Pro?
Have not touched a Wilson basketball, no. I have not. Have you?
It looks like it's more rubber than the leather finish. So I haven't touched one of those, not the NBA ones. We played with a similar one in the NBL, the Wilson Jet, and they weren't too bad. They were more kind of rubbery and bouncy. You could really feel how rubbery they were, kind of springy. Whereas the NBA one's a bit more kind of hard and less springy with Spalding. But now, so I haven't felt it. I wonder if that, if it's a bit more on the rubbery side and they're trying to move away from leather. It's all about climate change, Pro. You don't want to be using too much leather, and in the NBA, shit. I don't know. I'd hate to imagine how many of those leather balls being made for them. So maybe they've gone green. Because remember we used to wear the Go Green t-shirts, Pro, because we promoted every agenda under the sun whilst playing the NBA. We used to wear the Go Green t-shirt, and then you'd see a guy take a sip out of a water bottle and throw the whole thing out, and then get another one out of the fridge. But yeah, we're all about going green in the NBA, mate. Yeah,
no doubt. I definitely think it's fact. Now I think a lot of it has to do with the mental side of it. I don't think most of it, more than 50%, has to do with the actual ball itself. But I think the players' mental, and you know how it is with players, how fragile they are mentally sometimes. Not all of them, but a lot of them, where they think they shoot with a new ball is fucking them up a little bit. Because I'll tell you what, like, I watched Dallas last night, and again, sometimes you're just coming off a back-to-back and stuff, but guys couldn't make a fucking shot. And some of those guys are struggling from the three-point line in the first 6 or 7 games of their season. And it's not just them. I mean, like we said, there's a lot of these guys. It's just uncharacteristic. Now, Duncan Robinson just signed that big deal, so maybe he's fucked up from that. I don't know. But the guy can't make a shit. Fucking Huerter can't. Guys are playing him at the fucking charge circle from his three-point line, and he can't make a shot. It is a little weird that some of these guys that, historically are great shooters are really struggling. Not just one game, but struggling in 5 or 6 straight games. It is an interesting deal to sort of keep an eye on. But I think it is fact. I think at least mentally, most of them are fucked up from it.
Yeah, we'll watch that space. I think can only go up for those guys from here, I think. But Steph Curry and a few other guys. Steph Curry just shot a running 3-point shot with 20 seconds on the shot clock the other night. So, he doesn't seem to be struggling too much. But
fuck no.
He is a freak. And by the way, did you hear about his off-season shooting routine, what they've changed?
Yeah, the trainer the trainer's doing all swishes.
Crazy. Crazy.
Yeah, I want that trainer to come back and say he's doing the same thing for Looney and seeing how that fucking goes for Looney and seeing if he can improve.
Leave my guy Looney alone, man.
No, I'm just saying, like, I look, Steph Curry, his routine is ridiculous. And look, coming out of college, I thought he was just okay. I thought he was going to be a good player. I thought he could be a starter in the NBA. His routine and his confidence and his, that is what brought him into All-Star and Hall of Fame level. Like, there had to be a change, and I don't know if it was diet, I don't know if it was exercise routine, I don't know if it was workouts, but all of this stuff has really contributed to him being the great player that he has been. And if they're doing stuff like this where they're not counting on making unless it's a dead-eye swish, God bless him, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's the rumor. So basically what we're talking about here is they've said in his off-season workouts, it got to a point where it was just ridiculous. He's making 98 out of 100 or whatever it was on most of his spots and this and that. And his trainer said that he needs to think of something different to challenge him. And he's basically, they don't include the shot if it hits rim. So, sheesh, I'd be there. We'd be there for a while, bro. You'd be, you get a lot of cardio.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, you get a lot of cardio with me.
I'd look like you. Yeah. If I was rebounding for you, I'd look like you at the end of the workout. So God bless it.
Yeah, good one. All right. I'm going to do a breakdown to finish this off in lieu of story time. So I did a podcast the other day, Pro. It's called the Benas podcast. A friend of mine, a coaching friend of mine, put me in touch with Benas, who's Lithuanian. So check that podcast out, the Benas podcast. And we talked all things X's and O's. And one of his questions was one I wanted to touch on. So he was like, "What did you like as a player as far as scouting?" Now, outside of video clips, we know we've discussed video at length before, where players would want to watch certain clips and who prepared it, was it the player, the coach, all that kind of stuff. We discussed that before. But what did you want as far as a scout on paper? And so it triggered me to remember that, we get our standard, every team has standard scouting reports they give all their players. Most of them aren't ever even read or touched for the most part, but we all get a copy of a scouting report before every game. And then when the playoffs start, you get like an actual big ass folder full of
book,
a book, and then some back in the day when it was DVDs, you get DVDs, and now they can send you actual clips. But so anyway, he asked me, what do I like? And I kind of, my whole thing was mainly later on in my career. I didn't want the standard scouting report that, they drew up for everyone and said this player does this. Because once you played in the league long enough, I could tell you a guy's scout without even reading that shit. I'd know, all that kind of stuff, right? All I ended up wanting, I was one of the few guys that wanted this, but some guys did it, some guys didn't. I wanted the quadrant breakup probe. So there's like a document you can get or a program. I think you can even look at it at NBA.com. Cuts the court in half, and I think it puts it, is it 16 quadrants? 16 little areas, maybe. I think it's 16 max. And each little 16, so you'd have like left block, right block, left short corner, left deep corner, left three, and then blah, 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 so on and so forth. Long threes here, long three. And they all are associated to colors. And then obviously green's really good, orange is okay, red shit. So it would basically say, okay, I'm playing Blake Griffin. On the right block, it would say he's, 7 for 35 on the season, but on the left block, he's, 25 for 35. So I knew, like, okay, on the left block, like, I want to try to push him away from there or be on high alert when he catches it in these areas. Or if he catches it on the left block, right on the block, he's shooting 80%. But if I make him take a step off, it drops to 45. That were really useful for me because it was quick and easy, and it just would be like, all right, these spots good, these spots bad, keep him away. So I just wanted to talk about, what have you seen? That's kind of a unique one that not a lot of people used, I don't believe. It was there for the taking, but not a lot of players did it. I literally got a 2-page printout. Sorry, no, it was about a 5-page printout of all the bigs on the next team I was playing. And then come playoffs, I would also get, like, if we're playing Portland, I'd get Dame and I'd get anyone that I was involved in pick and rolls with. So I'd be like, okay, Dame, on a pick and roll going left, he pulls up most of the time, even from like 5 feet out. But going right, he's going to try to go off the dribble and beat me to the basket. So it's kind of shit like that where you kind of figure out. But just talk about some other unique ways players have kind of spoken to you about scouts, or some unique things you've seen other than just the standard, A to B scouting report.
I'll just give you the list of what I gave Kobe every game. So, I mean, it's funny that you said about the quadrants. A shooting coach, one of my best friends' name is Dave Hopla, who worked for, the Knicks, Washington, Toronto. He would tell me about what you're talking about with the quadrants. And this probably back in about 2005. And it was called NBA Hot Zones. And NBA.com had it. You could look at it with every player. And like hot, cold, it'll give you like a color depending on what he was shooting and what he was shooting in that quadrant. So, like, when I got hired by Kobe, I wanted to sort of impress him about what he needed. So we came up with this sort of format of things that he would get before every game. He wanted the starter, the backup, and the backup's backup in this list that he would get. He would get a 12-minute offensive breakdown on film, what they did offensively, shots they got in the offense in the last 5 or 6 games. He wanted 12 minutes on the block, on the dot for each player. Then he got a 9-minute video of nothing but their mistakes, turnovers, what situations they would turn the ball over, high frequency, place on the court, things like that. Then 8-minute edit on each player, defensive tendencies, strengths, weaknesses. Did they leave their feet for fakes? Did they ball watch? Could you do certain things where defensively they fouled in certain situations? He wanted all of that. The shot chart that we talked about that you had, he got the hot zone. Frequency of right and left, percentages on right and left finishes as well. He got, are they susceptible to fakes? Did their eyes wander off the ball? Were they mentally soft? How can they get in his head? Defensive rotations of the other team, where they rotate from in pick and roll, where they rotate from the post, where they rotate from the elbow isolation. And that was sort of some of the things that he would get. And then he would want a half-page plan of attack for the game. Where should he really start? What should he really be looking to do offensively? What, his teammates, like what was the mismatch that they had? Lamar Odom, was it Gasol? Was it, Bynum or whatnot? And then he would want post-game edits of his own play. So he was very particular as far as what he wanted video-wise, what he wanted stat-wise. And, he did this every fucking game. I've never seen a player do anything like this and eat it up for every game. It's crazy. It was pretty insane.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he probably had to commit more towards offense as well. So for me, later on in my career, let's be honest, I wasn't, my role wasn't to be really anything offensive besides getting Steph and Clay open, rolling, dunking, getting offensive rebounds, knowing my role. So I didn't really need to look at where am I getting double teamed from, you know what I mean? Whereas a Kobe or a Steph, I noticed Steph especially, they'll watch a lot of clips on how team defenses are set. The last time they played, what did they do to get the ball out of my hands? So I guess that sounds very similar to Kobe, whereas, I had the luxury of not having to invest that much time in my offense. I invested most of mine in defense because I knew that I'd have to stop their best big every night. It'd be myself and Draymond.
A lot of film, Bogues? A lot of film?
I wasn't a huge film guy where I'd watch clip after clip. I'd watch more patterns of play with what they're doing to try and, so if it was like Memphis, for instance, we played them, and I had the task of guarding Zebo that whole series and guarding him real well. It was more the unique ways of when they're trying to get him on duck-in plays, like what was the false action to get him to a duck-in, or what was the false action to get him to a cross screen, or how's he getting his points? So those kind of clips, but I wouldn't really watch like just a bulk of film. I was never a huge bulk film guy. I wanted more like paper stuff. So I was like, I wanted the numbers on paper. I just felt like I remembered that much more rather than an individual edit. But as far as film, I wanted some of their quick hitter stuff to get a star player cheap baskets like a Zebo. It's like, okay, they're going to run this and then cross screen you to get him an easy basket, or he wants it on this spot. This is how they get in there. I'd definitely, watch those. But I wasn't a 15, 20 minute film watcher pro. It just was never me. And I think for me, once you're in the NBA, other than, a few rookies coming in, you kind of have a pretty good feel for most guys. Not a lot really changes as far as guys' skill sets throughout their career, unless they maybe get a 3-point shot that they didn't have. Other than that, they're not really changing what they're doing in the post, what shoulder they want to go to. So it was just about having that good memory of knowing, exactly what they do.
Yeah, I mean, different players do different things, especially veterans, they probably want to do a lot less as they get more years into the league. But it's just different. Kobe was big on mistakes. How is a player going to make mistakes on offense or defense? Guys say O.J. Mayo. And going into a game against O.J. Mayo, I would give him a lot of clips about guys posting up O.J. Mayo and backing him down. Just because O.J. was 6'4" and short arms, average length. So things like that he could just destroy him with early on. And that's what you wanted to know, how they made mistakes and obviously what they were good at and what they weren't. It's just interesting about some players that just that sort of how they're built like that. Rondo could watch film breakdowns and scouting reports and things like that because obviously he's such a next level thinker. He ingests all that stuff. But then some players don't even want to fucking hear about it. So you give them stuff. You're like, no, I don't want to see this, bro. I'm good. I'm fine. Like, they hated scouting reports. I mean, what player loves there aren't many players that loves those fucking film sessions, day of the game, going after film after clip after clip after clip. Like, a lot of players don't like that shit and their eyes gloss over anyway. So, I mean, I think it depends. Some players like it, some don't. Some prepare just in different ways. Some are more video, some are more visual. Some like to read about the reports, but
walkthroughs. We do walkthroughs as well, where we walk through the sets and all that kind of stuff. Some people like that better. So everyone's different. I think it's, putting everything in one basket's silly. So you want to try to, for assistant coaches out there and coaches, sometimes you're going to have guys that can only sit through 5 minutes of film and then they're with the fairies, right? Then there's guys that hate the walkthrough because they're not going full speed. They can't really get fully engaged because it's just you're in street clothes and you're walking through. So everyone's different. And I guess just for the coaches out there and assistant coaches is just try to know your players and do, if you tick all those boxes, they'll get what they need from one or two of them, but they might not get what they need from all of them. So don't do just one thing and then be like, well, why aren't you watching more film? Because some people just don't, unfortunately, respond that way, and you got to kind of adapt on the fly. But that's what we see in the NBA. They definitely tick all the boxes, and they just pray to God that the players have taken one of those in, because they've wasted all this time doing clips and walkthroughs and email. In the playoffs, I got a massive Dropbox full of all the clips instead of DVDs because technology, right? So. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's just doing a good mix.
Yeah, and I think as a coach, you really need to read your audience, right? Like if you're watching 25 minutes of clips, to go over a team, and you see your guys falling asleep and not really paying attention, then condense it to 5 minutes, 6 minutes. I remember I hated fucking doing scouting reports and shit. It's funny. I love doing them for Kobe. I hated doing them in coaching. So when I was at the Red Claws, they had me do one game and one game only. My first and only game, I did 12-page scouting report, and I gave it to every player. Not on every player, but 12-page total, with plays, tendencies. Austin Ainge, Danny Ainge's son that was coaching the team, took the report. This is before the players got in the locker room, and literally ripped 9 pages out of each one. He goes, Mike, there's no way that they're going to ingest all this stuff. You got to keep it to 3 pages maximum. And that taught me a lot. Wait a minute, you're right. I can't treat players like they're coaches, because they're not. They're not coaches. They don't love this shit like that. They don't love the 19 plays that these teams are going to run. Maybe give them 2 plays that they're going to run that are really important, and then give them a couple of things on each player that they're good at, not good at. So that taught me a lot. Wait a minute, let's condense this shit. If I'm talking to a coach, I could talk all night about offenses and defenses and all that bullshit, but players don't like that. So. And it taught me a lot of how to deal with players, because not all players are like me. Not all players like and dislike the things that I like and dislike. So it's important to understand what motivates the player and what are they going to really want to ingest when it comes to – they're going to have to ingest something. You can't just get rid of it. But you can't just force things down players' throats and expect them, every player, to be the same. You got to figure out what the majority of your players are going to like when it comes to preparation, getting ready for teams.
Yeah, the best one was that coaches used to do was the deep scouting reports that were 3-4 pages long. They'd hide something in the middle of them saying, if you read this, come and collect $100 from Coach Kerr, or if you read this, or blah 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 blah. And
you want a story about that?
Yeah, let's do it.
So the Black Falcon might kill me for this one. So I would do these videos to prep Harrison one year. Same thing, players in his position that he'll be defending and their tendencies. Not as detailed as Kobe's, but I sent it to him. And I wanted to make sure that he was watching it. So I would slip in a slide of a North Carolina player, because that's where he went. So a famous NBA, it could be James Worthy, it could be Michael Jordan, whatever. Then I started getting really just obscure players. So I gave him one of this 7'6" guy that played at North Carolina. And I would do it before the game. And it was a guy named Neil Fingleton. Well, the day I put Neil Fingleton in, he died of a massive heart attack.
No way.
Yeah. Dude, even my wife, I was fucked up for like 4 days. Then the staff was like, hey, pro, I got an ex-wife. Can you put her on the next report? Like shit like that. but like, I literally was the Grim Reaper. They called me the Grim Reaper for like a week or two. Like literally. And I knew the guy because I coached him. He was from England, 7'6". He was actually in the Game of Thrones actor. He tried playing. He was at North Carolina, and then he transferred to Holy Cross. He was an All-American, but he just wasn't mobile like that. He was like a Mark Eaton type, right? And played in North Carolina, wasn't very good. Transferred, like I said. Played overseas for a little bit, and then he was an actor. He was, like I said, he was in Game of Thrones and a bunch of stuff. I literally put his picture in the report that day, in the video, and he fucking died, the poor bastard. May rest in peace.
What did Harrison say?
Shook his head. He couldn't believe we cut it off that day. We never did it again after that. That was it. That was it. But literally, that they were giving me so much shit. Staff members were giving me so much shit because I was the fucking Grim Reaper. And then, of course, they started busting my balls.
By accident, like when you accidentally block JJ Redick.
Yeah, I accidentally, blocked JJ Redick.
It's always by accident.
They actually, the Mavericks put my contract in the fucking report my 6th year when they fucking shit canned me. So, it had the same effect, I guess. But
fun times. Anyway, that's episode 40. Thanks for tuning in. We had a few issues with the call-in, so we'll try to get that done next week. Appreciate everyone's support for joining us again, Pro. We will see you next week.
Bogues, thanks. Appreciate everybody. See you next week.